I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you join me in the pledge to flag, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Then we call the roll, please.
Mrs. Vanderwater?
Here.
Ms. Westcott?
Here.
Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Ms. Dickman?
Here.
Mr. Dudzinski?
Here.
Ms. Saban?
Here.
Mr. Sykes?
Here. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 1st, 2020 regular town board meeting.
Moved. Second.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 1, we're still going to continue the public hearing on local law A 2020, chapter 145 of the Van Buren Code regarding property maintenance and controlling junk. Go over the ground rules, pretty much the same as we set last time. If you spoke 2 weeks ago, we really don't need to hear your comments again, unless you've changed your position, and then you're welcome to speak. This hearing only applies to the code for properties outside of the village of Baldwinsville. We've got 4 empty seats here in case someone else comes. We're setting a 3-minute time limit with a 2-minute time extension, but 5 minutes will be the maximum. And we ask that you please address the board and not each other. This is so we can hear comments, your comments on the proposed code. As such, it does not mean we'll be offering answers or comments back. We expect to close the hearing at the end of the hearing tonight. We ask that everyone state their name and address for the record. PAC-B is here taping, so anyone can watch on the respective PAC-B channel if they want to view the entire meeting, and we're hoping that our Zoom works better tonight than it did 2 weeks ago. So the public hearing is still open. We're going to go first with all the Zoom comments. So anyone on Zoom that would like to address the board, either for or against, just say whether you're for or against, if you would, please. Anyone on Zoom?
Not yet.
You don't have anyone on Zoom, or nobody wants to speak?
We have 10 participants, but nobody has opened up their mic to speak.
Okay, we'll move to in-person comments then. Anyone here in the audience that would like to address the board, either for or against the proposed local law? Step up to the mic, please.
I'm Ralph Mills, 7376 State Fair Boulevard, and I'm a little hesitant to speak on this matter because I have other matters in front of the board. But with that said, I'd like to comment on 2 things. One is that last week, or 2 weeks ago when I was here, I heard a large number of people talk about Cherwood Drive. So there's a specific issue on Cherwood Drive, obviously. And all you got to do is go to Google Maps and Street View and you can find the problem on Cherwood Drive. So I would ask you to not make a law for the whole town because of an issue on Cherwood Drive. Second, I'd like to tell you a story about a car. In 1973, my wife and I bought a 71 automobile. It happened to be a Plymouth Barracuda. And a couple of years later, I happened to buy a different car and take a Hemi out of it and put it in the Cuda. Well, if you're not a car person, you may not know that Hemi Cudas, even ones that without original numbers, are well over $100,000 these days. The highest selling Hemi Cudas was a convertible and sold for $5 million. I've had that car since '73. Originally, the motor had problems in '76 when I lived on Bump Drive in the town of Van Buren, and the car was parked in the driveway. I moved to Endicott for a couple of years. The car went with me. I came back to 7376 State Fair Boulevard, and the car sat outside, unable to run, without a motor in it until 5 years ago when I retired. The car's been inside for the last 5 years, and I spend 1,000 to 1,500 hours a year working on that car. Thank you.
Thank you. So are you for or against it?
That's a good question. I'm against what I saw on Sherwood Drive.
Well, it's not just Cheerwood, so there's many, many other areas in the town.
There are many areas in the town where there are too many cars, places, property that's been for sale within the last year that I've gone to look at on roads I won't mention, and I wouldn't be interested in the property because some of the neighbors.
Right.
On the other hand, I think the law is too restrictive when it comes to automobiles right
Okay, I'll mark you down as a maybe then. I'll mark you down as against, bro. Okay, anyone else here in the audience? Okay, anyone on Zoom wishing to speak? Okay. Anyone else? Any of the board members have any comments?
I will say that according to my calculations, with Mr. Mills, it's an even 43-43. Again, I'll reiterate, having it so close to the yays and the nays, I think this speaks volumes that the board really needs to do some more work on this before we present it for vote.
Are you counting the people that spoke along with the written testimony we got?
Yes,
Because some of those did both.
correct. And I was very cognitive of that and didn't double, and nor did I double husband and wife or people at the same residence.
Lynn, what do you got for a count?
Hey, silence. The father is gonna be on that.
40 for it. And 37 against.
That's pretty evenly split. Okay.
And I think that's my concern, is that it's still, to me, is 50-50. And I know we haven't heard from everyone, and I know this law will not affect everyone. I'm not sure it's ready for adoption, and that's my position today.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes. I know we're looking at responses we got as roughly 50-50, but it's still a small percentage of the town. And I think if you look over many years of public hearings, the people that normally come to a public hearing are those who are against whatever the proposal is, as opposed to being for it. You will get a few that are for, but most of the time it's if you're in opposition. And I think also there's a lot of misunderstanding out there, thinking that we are trying to put in a lot of regulations that never were around before. And frankly, pages of this law are simply definitions so that our codes officer, Casey, has something to go by and can explain to people what it is that he is finding fault with on their property. Much of this was already in the code. We just added definitions of some of the things. Much of it is New York State code, and it's always been there. So this was not something that was new and totally invented. We are also not going to have Casey, because he's busy enough, driving up and down streets looking for problem situations. And as I mentioned, I think back when we first presented this law, I've been a realtor over 30 years, and I well know how a property that's in disrepair can cause someone to not want to be in a neighborhood. And it might even be a house that's 2 or 3 doors away. It might be next door or across the street. I had 2 people come to me today that said, I'm so glad that the person that I'd been telling you about that had all this junk stored behind their shed, which they couldn't see, but I could, they moved. So I don't need to come in and tell you, I'd be in favor of this law, because my problem has been solved. Another one said to me, I lived next door to a junkyard for years, and she has since moved also. But she said, I was fearful for calling and turning them in because I didn't want any repercussions when I was right next door. She said, thank heavens somebody down the street finally got sick of looking at it and did call. This actually was over in Lysander, where she used to live. So I think that as far as maintaining property values, it is our responsibility as an elected board to uphold people's property values. And to help that out is to have the neighborhoods at least look kept. So when you see some of the pictures, if you haven't yet, please go on the website and look at them, of some of the properties that have, over the many, many years, we've been called about and asked, can't you do something about that? We've been in situations, I know there was one last year that just the stuff that was collected, the person was, basically was a hoarder like you'd see on TV sometimes, and had all kinds of stuff. And of course it draws rodents. It doesn't just look terrible, but it can be, a problem safety and sanitation wise also. So I just think it's the responsible thing to do for us to help people keep their property values up.
But Pat, by your definition, adding the definitions is where you come into the restrictions. So you add in there seasonal vehicle. The seasonal vehicle has to have a cover on it. There's the restriction. The definitions that you've added have the restrictions in the definition. I want to make sure the residents understand that. It's not just adding a definition and this is what we're going to explain a car is. It's the restriction that you're putting in that definition. You defined rubbish, litter, and debris, which includes children's play equipment, non-seasonal lawn furniture, toys, grills, recycle bins, wheelbarrows. If they're left out for over 7 days, that's a potential violation.
Well, we're not going to get into debating the whole lot here tonight in a vote. This is still the public hearing. Is there any other board members got anything they want to add?
Yeah, I just want to clear up a couple of misconceptions. Under the Property Maintenance Code of New York State, if someone is cited, they have 30 days to rectify the problem. The state code fine is $1,000 per day. If that goes to court, again, it is the judge that determines if there is a fine that has to be paid or if they want to force the person into compliance. At the $1,000 a day rate, a property owner can then be considered having a criminal record either for a misdemeanor or a felony based on how much money the judge might determine to have as a fine. Under the code that we have presented, we have added in a courtesy period of 15 days to go ahead. You get a courtesy call. Here's what has been found on your property. You're suggested to rectify it. If after day 16 you haven't, then you do get an official notice of violation. The town code has specified $250 a day for the fine. That has not changed. There is a concern about due process, that it will pit one neighbor against another, and the violator doesn't get to know who filed the complaint. I will reiterate that I have had people tell me that they will not make an official comment here tonight because once their name is known, they are afraid of what their neighbors may do back to them. The whole purpose of the law is to get compliance. It is to clean up the properties. New York State Property Maintenance Code says your property has to be clean, safe, and sanitary. That is very, very, very broad and leaves up to the code officer in any county, any city, municipality in the state to determine and interpret what they consider to be clean, safe, and sanitary. The definitions are much more restrictive than that open, broad statement. Again, this was brought to the Land Use Committee's attention because the previous code officer and the current code officer have said they have had problems trying to enforce the existing property maintenance code because they do not have specific language they can point to in the code to back up what they are being cited for as a violation. And due process, again, the code officer will go out based on a complaint, see if they feel that it meets the code definition. If not, then they just get back to the complainant and say there is no violation. If a violation is found, we go through the normal process, which has been in existence for however long the codes have been in existence. And if someone does not agree with the violation notice, they can take it to local court. And then the court would determine whether or not, what the outcome of that situation would be. So,
You still have penalties in your penalties that if the violation is not remedied, they could be imprisoned up to 15 days.
That's typical language, though. I mean,
Understood,
and this,
that has not changed.
No.
and that is an
Correct.
important distinction, that the penalties, notice of failure to comply, and work done by the town sections, whether they've changed section numbers, are all the same as the current code. I mean, as far as the penalty side of this, nothing there has changed. The only thing is, since Casey's in the audience, can I ask you how often in your time here, I know you haven't been here too long, have we gone to court over a code violation? Sorry to put you on the spot, just generically.
While we're waiting for Casey to get to the mic, the court will set the fines, not Casey or the town. It's the judge's role.
So it all depends on how, back to that compliance. If we don't get that compliance, the court numbers vary. Previous to me, the code officer had 9 in 1 year. Last year, when I took over, I had 1. This year, we're on track for 10 plus, easily. It all comes back down to that language. You know, my interpretation is different from the interpretation of the homeowner. So it's a catch-22. I can sit there and argue it out with them and say, I'm right, but it's not my job to say I'm right. It's my job to find that compliance and to avoid the court. We don't want to send you to court. We don't want that fees. We're just looking for compliance. That's all we're looking for. It's nothing more. You know, again, it comes down to Ms. Dickman, like she said, you know, the value of your neighbors. You know, I've had this discussion with a neighbor or someone out in the field, and I said, so I got a question for you. I go, so your neighbor down the street has a property and it's all a mess. They go, I'm going to go and talk to him. Believe it or not, how many of that happens? Not too many times. You know, I don't see anybody going down and telling their neighbor, hey, can you clean up your property? Decreasing the value. They call me. So it's everybody wants to sit there and say one thing, but they don't want to talk to each other. I've actually made recommendations to people to talk to their neighbor, not come through me, because when someone calls me and I show up on the door, I'm the bad guy. Always the bad guy. Got those bad names. If you talk to your neighbor sometimes, you can get the compliance. I'm that last-ditch effort, and that's where by implementing this code and getting those definitions, everybody's on the same page. We're not scatterbrained or anything. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other, board members got any comments?
Everybody said just what I think.
What was that? Say it again, Howard.
I said I agree with the comments that other board members have made.
Okay, one more time for people on Zoom. Anyone wish to address the board?
Yes, I would like to address the board.
Name and address, please.
Name Scott Johnson, 119 Seneca View Drive. 2 weeks ago, the comment was made to some of the stuff behind your house. I've talked to several of the neighbors, we all live on corners here. So where's the back of our house? I mean, you're on one side of the street, you can walk all the way in the back, or on the other side of the street, you can walk in the back. I was a little confused on that part. The other thing was the seasonal motor vehicle application here. I'm looking at the dates. I mean, and before, all we had to do was have things registered or insured and covered up for the season. Is that still true? Or has things changed here?
No, I think that's still the same.
Yeah, it's still the same.
It has to be registered and licensed. It can't be unregistered or unlicensed. The current law allows for one vehicle that's unregistered. The new law allows for 0.
But you might have,
Boats, you registered boats and you have things insured. Also, you know, like auto insurance on the vehicle. I mean, that was always the information I was told.
you can have a seasonal vehicle. If you have taken the plates off and sent them back to DMV, but it's still registered, it would still qualify as a seasonal vehicle, and you could still have it.
Okay, well, I still have the plates on it, it's still insured, so, okay. And all my boats are registered, so that's fine. And the thing is, I don't wanna get caught out, because I understand where you're at, you wanna beautify the town, so I wanna sell some of my boats. But I can't sell them until spring, and the season rolls around. So, I got too many boats, just ask my wife.
Maybe she'll turn him in.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be selling them in the spring. It also says that you're gonna turn this over to the Secretary of State for approval. How long does that take after you send it?
Rich?
That varies.
It usually is sent out, the day after the meeting, so probably within 5 to 10 days. And there's no approval that the Secretary of Department of State has. It's merely a filing requirement under the municipal home rule law. So the town board is a legislative body, enacts the local law, and then there's merely a requirement that it be filed with the Department of State.
All right, thank you very much. And my last question is to the code officer. Does he inspect people doing construction in the town? Like, make sure if they're under 6 feet, they got French boxes, because this whole town is loaded with liquid clay. And luckily, I got involved. Labor come up to me about 5 years ago and thanked me because he would have got killed the day before when all the stuff came flying in at him, because I requested to have a trench box put in. Is that the responsibility of the code officer to make sure that construction is done safely around here?
Absolutely not. It's OSHA.
Okay, well, I didn't know it was not his responsibility. Okay,
Like,
thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to address the board? Okay, any board members, one last time?
Yeah, one last thing. Some people have asked that this go to a referendum, so I did some checking with the attorneys, and a property maintenance code like this is not something that is allowed to go to public referendum. You have your public hearing at the local level, and it is voted on by the local town board. It doesn't go to public referendum.
Okay. No one else here in the audience wishing to address the board then?
Does Casey have something else?
No. Anyone last time on Zoom? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing and go into public hearing on B 2020 for a zone change for tax ID 064-03-04.0, 7376 State Fair Boulevard, regarding zoning change from R40 to R15 and waive the reading of the public notification.
You have to vote on the closing first?
It's all in one motion.
motion to close the public hearing on local law A and open the public hearing on local law B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now in a public hearing for local law B 2020.
Bob,
Yes.
can you move
Sure can.
He's too much.
Yeah. Let's see, I gotta get to my paperwork here. We've received a positive recommendation from the Planning Zoning Board recommending that they would approve this, and we should probably approve it. We also got county comments back, said no adverse implications, either local or county-wide with this. So, open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the board that's in favor of this?
Ralph Mills, 7376 State Fair Boulevard. It's my property, and I'm in favor of it.
Okay? We assume so, but we like to hear it.
Okay.
Is your wife in favor of it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Ralph. Anyone opposed to this zone change? It's from R40 to R15.
We saw a map, and it makes a lot of
Yes.
sense. It's not a spot zoning, it's contiguous to other zoning that's similar, not similar exact.
Okay, hearing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing and go back into regular session.
Moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is action on local law B20B. Entertain a motion to adopt the local law B20B allowing this zone change.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So I'll just say it's Law B 2020. Just make sure we have it correct.
It'll be enacted as local law 1. So we do letters to introduce and then enactment. We put a number on it. Reason we do that, for example, is because the previous local law was introduced as A before this law was introduced, but now it's going to be enacted potentially or considered after this one. So they kind of get switched. So as it's enacted, it'll be local law 1.
Okay.
I would just recommend the board do a roll call vote.
Yep. We don't have to do anything for secret again, right?
So the seeker negative declaration is captured within the enactment resolution. I think the board also received the short environmental assessment form. Part 2 indicates no or small impact with respect to environmental conditions. Unless the board has any disagreement, then the resolution will capture the negative declaration.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No, I think this makes sense. This cleans up the zoning in that area.
Agreed. Okay, then, all those in favor, or roll call vote, please, Lynn?
Mrs. Vandewater?
Yes.
Ms. Wozniak?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Ms. Dickman?
Yes.
Mr. Dodzinski?
Yes.
Ms. Saban?
Yes.
Mr. Sykes?
Yes. Item number 4 is the assessor's report. Teresa, you're up.
Oh, good evening. You should have received a copy of the July and August 2020 assessor's report. The town received 1 filing for small claims assessment review this year. The hearing was scheduled on August 27th, and it resulted in no change to the assessment by the hearing officer. The town received 2 Supreme Court filings to challenge their assessments, 1 returning case from Village Green Apartments, and 1 new case on the Comfort Inn. All documents that have been requested have been forwarded to the town attorney for their use. Preliminary review of sales for the 2021 assessment roll indicates at minimum a 4% increase in residential home values from July of 19 to July of 20. Further review and analysis by both the assessor and the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services will indicate which neighborhoods will be required for reappraisal work for the 2021 assessment roll. Work on that 2021 assessment roll started on July 6th and will continue until the tentative roll is filed on May 1st. Inventory changes from completed permits are entered after processing and verification, and exemptions are removed or updated as needed due to ownership, age, or residency changes. Renewals for all of our senior citizens and disability exemptions were mailed on Friday, September 11th, And the deadline, as always, for exemptions, new applications or renewals is March 1st of 2021. When the county shut down in mid-March, we had a backlog of deeds, and we slowly caught up because of the shutdown. The lag time now between recording at the county and being received by the town is still approximately 2 months out. So we are catching up. And the New York State Annual Fall Assessment Conference is virtual only this year. And all of our one-day seminars have been canceled through December. And despite not having meetings or trainings since the middle of March in person, I'm happy to say that I have received my recertification for my IAO designation, which requires 60 credits over 5 years. And that's attached, and I will address any questions that you have.
Your third paragraph says there's a 4% increase in the residential home values. We constantly hear about sales being 20% over what they're asking. Now, that may not fall into that 719 through 720 time period.
No, and this is an overview of where the level of assessment to sale price is at the end of last year's roll and where it starts at the beginning of our analysis for this 2021 assessment roll.
So with this hot market, that'll be in lag.
Yes.
And that would be the next year.
Yes, some of it may be a lag because our cutoff is July 1 of 2020. And like I said, this is a broad, this is the first broad analysis of assessments to sale prices in the town from 1 year to the next.
Okay. And what's your forecast for commercial assessments for, they're based on the same time frame, right?
They're based on the same time frame, and from what I've seen so far, but I have limited numbers, and I won't know the county-wide numbers until the state comes up with their analysis later on in the year. Vacant land and commercial appear to be pretty flat.
Okay.
Teresa, you had noted a returning case from Village Green Apartments. Can you explain what that one is?
It's the whole complex of the Village Green apartment complex.
Okay.
Which includes all of the properties on the main thoroughfare in Village Green and also on Delwood.
So the 445 units that they have?
Yes.
Okay.
They are all lumped into one court case. Okay. But not like Cedarwood or the Red Coach or the senior apartments.
Okay. And they are looking for a reduction in their taxes?
Significantly, yes.
Okay.
And their assessment.
In their assessment. And for the Comfort Inn, which hasn't even been in operation for how long?
No, the Comfort Inn is open on Interstate Island. It's the restaurant that's been closed for years that's next to it. The Comfort Inn is open, and they have provided income information to the town and grievance. And basically, they're looking for a reduction in their assessment because of the hit that they've taken since March.
I've never seen a card there. That's why every time I've gone past it, I didn't think it was even open, so.
No, it is.
Okay. Have you started to get any other calls from any other commercial properties that are saying their assessments should be reduced next year because of COVID, because they were not able to open?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm already hearing those comments.
No, none yet.
Okay. Well, be forewarned.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Teresa. Item number 5 is consider a resolution regarding Highway Department mechanic salary rate, and I will read that and entertain a motion when I'm done. Whereas the town has recently experienced difficulty in both recruiting and retaining staff to fill the position of mechanic within the town's highway department. Whereas the town has determined that is both necessary and beneficial to the operation of the department to reallocate the pay level of the mechanic position to a higher level in order to be more competitive in the labor market. Now therefore, the town hereby approves the reallocation of the pay level of mechanic to the hourly rate of $27.80 per hour, effective immediately upon approval of this resolution, without retroactive pay applicable. Entertain a motion to that effect.
Moved.
I'll second.
Discussion?
We already know that our rate is lower than the county mechanic rate, but it's in comparison with other towns. We're comparable to what other towns are paying.
We are probably lower than some other towns.
Okay.
Doug? Our mechanic rate was probably lower than some towns, correct?
Yes, lower than
Yeah.
county and many other towns around there.
And that's after this rate hike, this increase.
It's been a year or two since I looked at them, but yes, I would tend to believe that even with that, I mean, I know for the county is a substantial, like, much larger than this difference. And some other towns are more too, so. I don't have an exact number off my head.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor committee reports and comments. Emma?
Nothing at this time.
Darcy?
Nothing.
Wendy?
No.
Ron?
No.
Howard?
Yeah, the senior center is going to have their bi-monthly meeting on Wednesday, October 7th, at 7:45 a.m. I'm surprised they're open because the activities are all outside now. The building itself is closed.
So that's an in-person meeting, not Zoom or? It's in-person meeting?
Yeah.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. Pat?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay. Doug?
I just wanted a quick say, hopefully they can pick me up. The big paving project with Village Boulevard South is finally completed. The guys worked.
Back up. And speak up. Back up and speak up.
Back up and speak up. Village Boulevard South has been completed finally. We finished paving it, we finished topsoil it this week. That ends our paving for this year. We have a bunch of other small projects we're gonna be working on and getting some other drainages and repairs and things along those lines. And then we'll be starting doing work on Village Boulevard North, because hopefully we're gonna be able to do the same thing to Village Boulevard North next year. So we're gonna get an early start, jump on that this year, and try and get some of the drainage squared away ahead of time. So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to contact our office. That's it.
What are you hearing through your highways associations, both state and local, on the cuts coming from Albany?
There is still nothing definitive from both the state and county. They are all anticipating 20% cut in CHIP funding. That's with CHIP, EWS, and Pave New York.
What about the severity? Any word on whether they contemplate leaving that intact?
As for the county,
The county or the state?
that hasn't been mentioned, so I do not know. We had our first in-person superintendent's meeting this month. We have done several Zooms, but it's been very difficult to get everybody involved in those. So they're trying to get everybody caught up to speed, but the only thing so far that they've said is that everybody should be at least planning for a 20% reduction in chips, even though it's not 100% definitive yet. It's just a good idea to be ready for it.
Right. Yeah, because as you know, we're in budget preparation right now, and all towns are. So
Yes, yeah,
it'd be nice to have some direction from Albany.
The state, our local contact has been reaching out very frequently, but unfortunately, he doesn't have the information either. He's just been, every time he hears anything, he communicates it to us, but it's never been anything that has much substance to it or answers, really. He's just
Okay.
passing along whatever he hears, so.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
That's it.
No? I have nothing other than the fact that we are required by New York State to prepare a plan for dealing with future disaster emergencies involving communicable diseases. We're going to try to look at doing that on a joint basis because for towns and villages, it'll pretty much be kind of a cookie cutter thing, we believe. So that has to be done by April 1st of next year. So, that's all I have. Citizens' comments, anyone wishing to address the board? Okay, Jason?
We're wrapping up our Seneca drainage work for the year. Onondaga County Soil and Water is going to be out doing the hydro seeding, getting grass growing out there for people who got drainage work this year.
Okay. Rich?
Lynn?
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to October 6th at 7 PM, at which time we expect we will vote on the property maintenance law.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, people on Zoom, and thank you for those here in person.